about to do a rant, but it's also going to have a lot of questions. Because I don't have all the answers yet. Well, I don't know that I ever have all the answers, and who am I kidding? I'm most of the time just asking a ton of questions. So here's your warning that this is probably going to be rambly. It's probably not going to have well thought out bullet point responses to anything. But I think that the discussion needs to begin happening. It's already begun happening. But it needs to happen with more intentionality. So everyone over the last couple of days has lost their ever-loving minds because some guy named Brian, I don't know who he is, I never followed him before, but some guy named Brian posted a tweet. And this is nothing we've never heard before. I mean, what he says is really quite basic. He says, "Dear ladies, there is no reason whatsoever for you to post pictures of yourself in low-cut shirts, bikinis, bra, and underwear, or anything similar ever. Not to show your weight loss journey, not to show your newborn baby, not to document your birth story, your brothers." Well, see, here's the thing. There's some pretty justified outrage against this whole idea. Because women, frankly, are tired of men in pulpits telling us how we are responsible for being the shutters for your eyes. On the other hand, I don't take kindly to being lumped in with whatever rabid third wave feminist, cover your children's ears, people are marching in vagina hats, just because I don't think it's my job to police your thoughts. I mean, if you want to be lustful and indecent in your own mind, it's your right, but it's not my job to make you stop. And we know from data and research that places like Saudi Arabia, where women are completely covered from head to toe, well, their rates of rape and sexual assault are equally as high, if not much higher, than places where women are free to walk around wearing whatever they want or don't want. Here's the thing. As I think through this, I have no desire to post pictures of myself on social media or honestly anywhere else that are sexually revealing or that show off anything that I feel is a private part of my body. You won't find swimsuit pictures of me frolicking at the beach with my children or my friends online. You won't find photos that I think could be interpreted indecently by anyone, at least on the face of it. Certainly not that I'm aware of, anywhere. I don't take those pictures, not because I feel like I need to police the brains of my brethren, but just because I know how jacked up the world is. And the more I learned about how jacked up the world is and how many people are out there who love nothing better than an opportunity to objectify, the more I realized that if, just given the way the world is, I'm not saying how the world should be, but given the way the world is, that if I want to be taken seriously, nobody needs to have pictures of my boobs hanging out anywhere to compare with a sermon I may be preaching or a presentation or lecture I may be giving. Certainly not with the controversial topics that I already talk about. Now, does that apply across the board to everyone? Nope. Not everybody does my job or has the exposure that I have or lives the kind of life that I have. And that's just my personal choice. Now I have a daughter who's growing rapidly toward young womanhood. Am I going to let her out of the house in grossly indecent attire? Probably not. But I'm also not going to tell her at the age of 10, 11, 12, 16, that she needs to cover up to keep all the grody older men at church from lusting after her, because what they do with their brains is their problem, not hers. And I don't want her to grow up feeling the shame of needing to use her actions to manage someone else's expectations of their own temptation. So, this being said, do I believe, yes, I posted a snarky tweet response to Dear Brian. My response said, Dear Men, there is no reason whatsoever to post pics of yourself in a well-tailored suit at the gym, lifting your toddler at the beach, ever. Not to show your fiscal responsibility, not to show off your wellness journey, not to document your delight in fatherhood. Signed, your sisters. Yes, it sounds insane when we revert it, right? Because nobody tells men they need to manage their behavior to avoid lust from women. It is entirely a unidirectional set of instructions. And that is what I personally believe most Christian women, at least, are pushing back against. We're not fighting for some random entitlement to post nudes. We're saying, dudes, your brain is your responsibility. Full stop. And here's the thing, even if no Christian woman anywhere ever posted another possibly, partially, conceivably, rationally, maybe even a little bit indecent picture of herself online again, as long as men are saying women need to cover up so we don't stumble, you're telling us that you can't control yourself in a world where all the other women don't live by our same set of standards. So you're telling us you're not a safe man, because it doesn't matter how much I cover up, there's still going to be women who don't. And if you can't control yourself around them either, then that's the baseline issue here. It's not that every godly woman wants to have some kind of permission or right to start blasting the world with sexualized images. That's not it at all. Most of us have no desire to do that. I'm not even gonna, if you run into me in town, in my hometown, you are not going to ever bump into me wearing a risque outfit, because I just don't. But do I think that you need to control your own brain? Yes. Do women need to also be responsible for our own minds? Yes. And the majority, especially of religious women who have been sexually assaulted, molested, even raped, they weren't wearing risque outfits. What they were wearing has zero to do with how someone else exploited them. Because if you're 4, your outfit doesn't matter. If you're 12 and wearing a long, loose dress, your outfit is not the problem. So yes, you can say, see, I'm pulling here so that my tank top strap doesn't show, so nobody thinks I'm indecent. But you know what? That's the thing. If we reverse it, and we tell men, hey, dude, don't wear that well-cut suit. You look like you're responsible, successful, confident, and well-built and fit, and I might not be able to control myself. Really? Are we insane? Yes, it sounds insane from the other side of the coin. So if the advice doesn't make sense both ways, maybe we should be reconsidering the advice. And for all of you who want to just have a straw man argument and say, well, you know, all you Christian women just want excuses to be able to post salacious photos of yourselves online. No, stop it. That is not the issue. So I messaged a friend of mine who's a computer programmer and works in coding. And we have conversations about this stuff sometimes. And I'm like, okay, talk to me about a guy's perspective on this. Give me some feedback. Yes, you can probably hear the train. I live by train tracks, nothing I do with them. And he's like, I said, look, you know, I have a lot of thoughts about women, how we should, men and women, how we should teach the next generation, as so many in this generation are deconstructing the toxic aspects of purity culture, the opposite side of the coin of rape culture. Purity culture, promiscuity culture, two sides, same coin. It's all rape culture. It all focuses on the body instead of the heart, mind, and soul, the wholeness of men and women equally made in the image of God. So as we're deconstructing this, at some point, we have to replace it with something, right? Otherwise, we're operating in a vacuum. And just like Jesus says, hey, so there was this one guy who cast out the demon and the house was empty and the demon came back with 7 more. We don't want to be in that situation, do we? 10, 15 years from now. So what do we replace this with? And here's where I don't have a lot of answers yet. I have thoughts, I have ideas, I have things I'm pondering, I have material I'm working on, I have stuff I'm studying, but we have to be having a conversation about how to intelligently and faithfully replace the junk that we have built our framework around when it comes to sexuality, teaching our children, and instructing the next generation on wholeness when it comes to these topics. So I'm talking to my friend, and I'm like, hey, Jonathan, talk to me about your ideas on this. And he took a coding programming angle for it, which he gave me permission to share with you. First of all, he says, you know what, I'm not sure there's a single answer to this because purity culture presented a very shallow, binary way of thinking. And the world is actually way more nuanced than that. Our world, our society, every culture requires the ability to adapt to each situation individually, not to be so concrete and just narrow-minded and black and white dichotomous thinking and just so hands-on that we cannot have intuitive understanding that applies underlying principles. So learning to read people and recognize whether they are comfortable or uncomfortable, whether someone is trying to attract unhealthy attention or is just being their exuberant self. All of these things require understanding. It is not a binary world. So someone who has been raised in that exclusive either or kind of mindset, which purity culture very much is, so is promiscuity culture, the change in thinking process, the deconstruction and debridement, rinsing and cutting away of the infected tissue so that you can leave what is healthy, it's a hard process to achieve. It's bewildering, it's painful, it's excruciating, and it's long and drawn out process. It does not happen overnight. It requires, this is Jonathan's words, it requires taking time to stop and process and think about things without necessarily coming to conclusions instantly, and be willing to leave ends open until more information comes through. To be willing to step back and just say, I don't have enough data to draw a conclusion to this yet, but I'm going to stay true to the principles that I know. The principles that I know in this topic are males and females are both wholly and fully created in the image of God and are worthy of honor and respect as complete beings. Sexuality is not the identity in which we define our interactions with other people in a healthy world, period. Now, so a programming lesson, courtesy of my friend Jonathan. In computer logic, when evaluating which process path to take, we have a couple of tests. And, or, either or, and not. Not is simply a binary flipper. Not false is automatically true. Not true is automatically false. For and, you have to have both conditions true in order to proceed. For or, either condition can be true as well as both. For either or, it is either this or that. Both and neither, so both and not, none, not, will stop that path from proceeding. Sometimes either or is valid. There is such a thing as irreconcilable differences and opposing core values, like trying to look right and left at the same time. My eyes do not rotate both out. It is either or, period. Cannot do both. But things can get muddied when lies are mixed in with truth. So we have to come back to what is truth. Truth is male and female are created simultaneously, together, equally, mutually, in the image of God. Male and female are both whole people with sexuality as one component of a much greater identity. Many more facets. If we see someone whose physicality is on display, the principle of the response is to see them as still a whole person. My friend Ann Blythe tells me about, she's the founder of Betrayal Trauma Recovery. She talks about talking to her 12-year-old son about him noticing at the water park the girls in their swimsuits. And she's like, well, would it be better if they had no stomachs? Like, how would they walk around if they didn't have a stomach? Would it be better if they had no legs? How would they get from place to place if they didn't have legs? Like, so you're noticing these girls, you're noticing their bodies. That's fine, that's age appropriate. All of a sudden you become aware of the opposite sex. You notice whether they're cute or they're fit or they're lean or they're not or whatever. But are you looking at them from the perspective of, well, I mean, she needs that stomach to digest her food. It's a pretty basic part of a body that works. You want her to go walking around with nothing between her head and shoulders and her knees and toes? Do you want to walk around without a stomach? Or never taking your shirt off? Why is it okay for you to take your shirt off at the water park, but you think she shouldn't? If you see her as a whole person and her stomach is there to do a job for her body, not for you to stare at, well, all of a sudden, you're seeing her as a functioning entity, not as a consumable commodity. And I think we have to start having these conversations. Is it going to take time? Yes. Is it going to take work? Yes. Is it a colossal effort in the face of both purity culture from the religious world and promiscuity culture from the Hollywood and media world? Absolutely. Can it be done? Yeah, I think it can. Can we make a difference and change? Yeah. Yeah, I think we can. I think if we work together and we stop the binary thinking and we open our minds to see each other as created in the image of God, whole people with far more to offer than just beauty to be devoured on either direction, I think we can come to completely new ways of thinking. Hit me with your thoughts. I want to keep this conversation going. This is just the beginning.